The janitor, the CEO, and the girl in the chair. Ethan Walker never complained, not when he scrubbed the same floors every night, not when he dragged himself home at 2 a.m. to help his 10-year-old son with reading, not even when the bills piled up like a cruel mountain daring him to climb. He had lived harder years. Years filled with heartbreak, tragedy, and nights where he prayed his son Noah would never see him cry. Ethan worked as a janitor at Hale Industries, one of the biggest tech companies in Chicago. The building looked like a tower of glass and power, run by a man who seemed carved from stone, Richard Hale, the billionaire CEO with a jaw that never unclenched and a heart rumored to be colder than the marble floors he walked on. Their paths rarely crossed. Until the night Ethan saw Richard's daughter alone. It was nearly 11 p.m. The corporate charity gala was ending, the musicians packing their instruments, the guests laughing as they slipped into sleek black cars. Ethan was sweeping the edges of the ballroom when he heard soft, muffled sobbing. Near the back corner by the balcony doors sat a girl, maybe 19 or 20, her long blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. Her wheelchair blinked with soft blue LED lights, the battery low. Her hands were shaking. Ethan hesitated, then approached quietly. Are you all right? She quickly wiped her eyes, embarrassed. Oh, sorry. I didn't think anyone was still here. I'm the cleanup crew, he said gently. I'm always here last. She smiled faintly. Her name was Lily Hale, and she had been paralyzed from the waist down for almost a year. Her father brought her everywhere with security, personal nurses, and a carefully crafted image of resilience. But tonight, she said, he had barely spoken to her. He's ashamed, she whispered, staring at her limp legs. Not of me. But of the accident. Ethan paused. What accident? She hesitated, then shook her head. It doesn't matter. But Ethan knew that tone. He had lived it. Pain hidden behind a curtain. They talked more, about books, music, the cold Chicago air. She told him she used to dance before the accident. Told him she missed the feeling of spinning with her arms out, like she could touch the stars. Ethan swallowed hard. His late wife, Mia, had danced the same way. He whispered, my son's mom was a dancer too. She passed when he was little. Lily looked at him with soft sorrow. Your son, he's lucky to have you. No, Ethan said, eyes lowering. I'm lucky to have him. Before he could say more, 2 large security guards stormed toward them. There you are, Miss Hale, one boomed. Your father's been looking everywhere. Wait, Lily said, panicked. He'll be angry. But they were already wheeling her away. Ethan stood stunned. Angry? Angry at what? At her being alone? At her speaking to a janitor? He didn't know. But he would sooner. 2 days later, Ethan was called into the CEO's office. Richard Hale didn't sit. He loomed. My daughter tells me you approached her, the CEO said. His tone was ice. Do you realize how inappropriate that is? Ethan blinked. Sir, she was crying. I just asked if she was okay. Your job, Richard snapped, is to clean. Not to socialize with my family. Ethan's jaw tightened. I wasn't socializing. I was being human. Richard's eyes narrowed. You will stay away from her. The threat wasn't shouted. It was whispered, quiet, sharp, lethal. Ethan nodded, keeping the storm inside him contained. But fate had other plans. A week later, during a late-night shift, Ethan heard a soft hum of a motor. He turned and saw Lily rolling toward him, breathless. I ran away, she whispered. Not far. Just here. Ethan exhaled sharply. Lily, if your father finds out. He won't, she said firmly. And even if he does, I don't care. She looked at the empty ballroom, its lights dimmed, the giant chandelier casting soft reflections across the polished floor. "I want to dance again," she whispered. "Even if it's just, in my imagination." Ethan swallowed. "Then imagine with me." He stepped in front of her chair and did something no one else had dared. He extended his hand like she was still a dancer on two legs. Her eyes widened. "May I have this dance?" he asked softly. Her breath trembled. She placed her hand in his. He didn't move her chair. He didn't lift her. He simply swayed gently, guiding her upper body with the softness of a man who carried grief but knew how to cradle beauty. Her eyes filled with tears. No one had treated her like she belonged on a dance floor since the accident. When the moment ended, she whispered, "Thank you." But the next voice in the room shattered everything. "What do you think you're doing?" Richard Hale. His face twisted in rage, fists trembling. "Get away from her," he hissed. "Now." "Dad, stop!" Lily cried. He was just trying to help. But Richard grabbed the back of the wheelchair and turned her sharply. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Sir, please don't handle her like that." Richard froze, then slowly turned. "Consider yourself fired." The words hit harder than a punch. Ethan stepped back, heart plunging. "I have a son." "Not my problem," Richard said. "Security will escort you out." Ethan watched helplessly as Lily reached for him, her voice cracking, "Ethan, I'm so sorry." But he was already being dragged away. His job, gone. His dignity, stripped. His heart, fractured. And yet, something else shattered that night too. A truth. A secret. A piece of information that Ethan overheard as he was escorted past the boardroom, something Richard never wanted revealed. Something that connected the CEO, the daughter, the paralysis. And Ethan's own past. A truth that would lead them all back to that ballroom. To the impossible moment when Lily moved her legs. And to a revelation that would bring the CEO to his knees. The dance, the secret, and the miracle. 3 months passed. Ethan took night shifts at 2 different diners, hardly sleeping, barely seeing Noah. Their tiny apartment grew colder as winter approached, the landlord threatening eviction. But none of that weighed on him as heavily as the guilt. He missed Lily. Not romantically. But with the ache of someone who had been trusted with a fragile soul, and then ripped away. He replayed her shaking hands, her heartbreaking smile, her father's cruelty. And above all, the secret he had overheard. One sentence. One sentence that changed everything. "If anyone finds out the accident was your fault, Richard, Hale Industries will crumble." Ethan had frozen. The CFO's voice was unmistakable. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the security guards had walked him right past the room. And now he knew. Richard Hale caused Lily's paralysis. Not a random accident. Not bad luck. Not unavoidable. It was him. And worse, he was covering it up. One snowy morning, as Ethan served pancakes to a table of tired customers, a familiar voice whispered. "Ethan?" He turned. Lily sat in a wheelchair by the counter, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her eyes bright with determination. His heart nearly stopped. "Lily? How?" "I asked the driver to bring me here." She glanced around. "I found out you got fired. I had to see you." "Lily," he murmured, stepping closer. "You shouldn't be out like this." "I'm done living under my father's surveillance," she said fiercely. "And I'm done being lied to." He stiffened. "Lied to? About what?" She swallowed. "I overheard him on the phone. About the accident. I know it wasn't random." Ethan's chest tightened. "Lily. I want the truth," she whispered. Ethan knelt, voice